Taoiseach, you're very welcome to Navan. You would have met with local retailers and business people this morning to discuss their concerns and their observations over the last 20 months. How did you find it?
The feedback was very good. I mean, it was useful insights that I gleaned from those who have enterprises in Navan. Senator Shane Castle's organised this. First of all, they were very thankful for the support that they'd received during COVID-19, which basically meant their businesses had remained intact. But more than that, some then had moved on in terms of, in addition to their bricks and mortar, having an online presence, which they feel has helped to move their businesses on significantly, and they would have received some supports in terms of the transitioning to online. So that's what was interesting to pick up. Good presentation on childcare, the need for us to do more in respect of that, and we have made an allocation in the budget for that. And then the wider issue around climate change and how we can make town centres more attractive for people to come to visit, to shop in, and also then the issue of housing within town centres, the type of supports that we can make available to encourage people to live in towns and to renovate old, dilapidated buildings for the purposes of residential.
The retailers of Meath, and indeed the people of Meath generally, will be very concerned over the weekend spike in cases and hospitalisations. I mean, a lot of them may be worried that we may be about to take a backward step.
What was interesting today from the presentation from the traders was that they believe firm action now can be beneficial to the wider economy and to business. In other words, the economy depends on we keeping a check on COVID. We should never lose sight of that. But we are in a much different position to that of last year because we have vaccination. And so we're largely, we have a very substantial rate of vaccination in this country. The booster program is next. It has been rolled out to the over 80s, now the over 60s and healthcare workers. The data from the over 80s is encouraging in that the incidence of COVID-19 has come down after the administration of the booster. This has happened in Israel and in other countries. So the data in respect of that third dose is quite significant in terms of its impact. That's one arm we have. The second will be expansion of antigen testing in addition to the PCR testing, which is quite extensive in Ireland. And the third then will be, we're going to have to look at behaviour, we're going to have to look at the advice from NPHET in respect of working from home over the next number of weeks.
We're hearing a lot about the pressure on ICUs and hospitalisations. You'll be aware that 2 weeks ago in Navan there was where nearly 10,000 people took to the streets to protest about plans to downgrade Navan A&E and ICU services here. What assurances can you give that those plans won't be implemented?
Well, we will be expanding services in health. I mean, if you look at where Navan was 10 years ago to where it is today in terms of number of people employed, for example, in the health service, it's higher today than it would have been back then. The overall issue in terms of health is where do we get the best outcomes in terms of a person's illness or a person's condition or an accident. What's the best outcome for that person? It's the immediate first responder response very often. So Navan is part of a wider set of hospitals. We're not closing anything, we're expanding services. We take medical advice, we take the clinical advice in respect of the optimal configuration of hospitals. But the North East is growing, and demographically it's growing, and the health services will grow in this area to reflect that.
Minister Donnelly has said that those plans that are in place to downgrade the service are paused. Is there any assurances that you can give that those plans will be permanently removed?
I would take issue with the word downgrade. I think we need to move from that. Genuinely, now I've been through this as a former Minister of Health across the country, and we just need to look at this in a much more forward-looking way that provides the best healthcare for people when they most need it and in a timely manner. And we can never lose sight of that. And to make sure we get the best outcomes for people. And we have to be sensible about it as well. This is a large urban centre. Minister Donnelly has said that. But I think I've seen this in different areas, how hospitals have flourished. And we need to provide additional services for people closer to home.
Finally, Taoiseach, we're in Navan railway station, and in the NTA strategy Navan gets a brief mention. It's a plan and a proposal to bring passenger services back here, but sometime between 2032 2042.
Well, I think
it seems more aspirational than
I think it's very significant.
Realistic.
I wouldn't call it a mention, I'd call it a statement, a decision. It's a very significant statement in terms of a Navan rail line and in terms of a service here And Shane Castles has been at this for quite some time, for over a decade now. He's been campaigning for this, and the NTA strategy is a significant game changer in this respect. The NDP provides funding, the National Development Plan, in terms of the planning stage. I know that Meath County Council has done a lot of work in respect of this project. From our perspective, the issue is getting delivery now, getting the planning processes up and running as quickly as we possibly can. Very often construction can then depend on how fast we get the planning done, because it's the planning takes the lengthiest period, getting all the consents, whatever is required in terms of potential CPOs or the route selection and so on. That's the time lag in projects of this kind. We've initiated an overhaul of our planning system because there is a difficulty in Ireland in getting large projects done in a timely manner. And as far as I'm concerned, if projects come in early, and I know Eamon Ryan is very committed to this, particularly in public transport and railway projects and rail lines, if they come in early, we'll fund them and get them off the ground. The issue we will have as a country is getting the projects developed quickly through the planning processes.
Many thousands of people in their cars commuting to Dublin every day will be hoping to hear that, this timeline can be fast-tracked, for want of a better phrase. Do you think that you've heard enough from the people in Navan, from Senator Castles, Minister Byrne, that this needs to be advanced as best as possible?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm committed to this, and my commitment is in terms of the National Development Plan. We've provided the funding for a lot of projects. The challenge will be getting those projects to the stage where they can be constructed and built. That is actually the challenge, and all of us collectively in society has to focus in on that to allow projects to get through more quickly. There tends to be a lot of objections to projects at different stages of projects as they're going through different processes. There does come a stage when the greater good has to prevail. The greater public good here is that this rail line gets developed, and we as a government are committed to progressing that.